You're listening to the Planet 76 podcast, a podcast about 76ers basketball, and we're cleared for takeoff. Let's go. Planet 76, what is going on? This is your co-host Troy. I got Michael with me from Trust the Love, and this is episode 53 of Planet 76 podcast, recording on May 26, 2022, a couple weeks after the season's end for the Sixers. If you did not catch episode 52, let me fill you in. Maybe you can go listen or watch that one first before you watch this one. This is kind of the second part of our little end of the year series. So last week we just gave our thoughts on the end of the season, the extensive thoughts on the Miami series, and gave out some playoff grades, and so all that fun stuff. We had some good laughs in that episode, so you might want to go check that one out. And then this week we're gonna continue to just kind of recap the season, and then officially after this one we're going to more so transition to next season. This will be a little more recap of the season and then some thoughts on upcoming, but episode 54 is going to start anew with some off-season, all of that fun stuff. So what you can look forward to today in this episode is kind of what now for the Sixers, an end of the season recap, thoughts on some Joel Embiid in the news recently and Doc Rivers in the news recently, and then just some talk about James Harden. Obviously, he's the big piece added for the Sixers, and just our thoughts on what he did this season. So Michael, where do you want to begin with any of those things I mentioned, or something completely out of left field? Where would you like to go to start off tonight?
I mean, I say we can just. Oh my gosh, my computer fan's going crazy right now. I say we just go. We'll start. I mean, Troy has an outline here, so I say we just start with the outline. I mean, we got some thoughts, some pretty notable areas of the Sixers roster, I should say, but franchise in general. Matisse Thybulle, Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid. So I say we just run up with Matisse and we give our thoughts on some of the news that we saw with Matisse this week.
Let's do it. Yeah. So you gave let me know a couple points you wanted to touch on in this episode, and one of those was Matisse Thybulle. So
yes,
why don't we chat about that? Like what he has been in the news. You mentioned that. What is the news? What's your thoughts on the news? That kind of thing.
Well, basically, there have been reports come out that he's supposedly not untouchable in any trade or anything like that in the offseason, which I guess is it's not really too surprising. It's something that I think some people probably expected. Mm-hmm. And if it's true, because again, it's still NBA, it's still sports, there's still a lot of fake news going on, things of that nature. If it's true, which assuming it is,
right?
Apparently the Chicago Bulls have interest in obtaining Matisse Thybulle in some way, shape, or form. And if he really is not untouchable, which I think he should be, he should not be untouchable, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. That's a weird way to say.
I think it's for the best at this point. I think with his game, with where he's at, I think if he continues on this path, he's not going to improve offensively. His defense is going to be there, but there's only so far your defense can carry you as a player. You need to make consistent developments in your offensive game, whether it's a jump shot, whether it's passing ability, whether it's some sort of shooting ability.
Right. And
Thybulle, even having played 7 professional years of basketball, hasn't really done that. And I think where he's at now, he's 24, he's entering his his peak, where he's going to be his best, and his defensive value is probably at an all-time high. I think the Sixers should capitalize on that now, whereas maybe next year or even mid-year next season, that won't be the case. His value will have plummeted a little bit.
That's interesting. So, if I'm going to be completely honest, watching Matisse during the regular season, watching Matisse in the playoffs, and then now as we enter into postseason, again, 2 weeks removed from the end of the season, I was not super upset with Matisse.
Okay.
Coming out of the playoffs, and I think part of that's my issue because I just grew so used to seeing Matisse do what Matisse does, if that makes any sense at all. Like, I kind of just, Matisse, he's going to miss those shots. He's not going to take those shots. He's going to be left open. I kind of just got used to that in myself, and I think that's to my own fault. And so I didn't have, I would guess, I didn't have quite as big of a problem internally myself as you might have with Matisse, or, had none of these things come out about Matisse being on, a possible trade this offseason and that kind of thing, I wouldn't have thought about it myself, where I think you might have. So what, are you just kind of over it, or, wanting to see what we can get for him, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think for me, it comes down to me being over that whole, it's Matisse, it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We had enough that was Simmons. We don't need that with another player.
Right.
And I think now you have a situation where, like you just said, I think you explore, at the very least, what you can get from it. Because, like I said, I think he still has tremendous value because of how good he is defensively, and teams want and need that kind of player. Albeit, again, he's not good, or even maybe average offensively. So, I think now is the time where you at the very least explore what you can get from him, whether it's a package deal, whether it's him for another player straight up. You just look what you have. You look what you can get, really. Right.
Yeah, he, like I said, I think a lot of it is to my fault with how I haven't really even thought about this, but the one thing I did notice in the playoffs, and I don't have the numbers or stats to back it up, it didn't seem like Matisse, whether it was, one, because he couldn't travel to Canada, two, because he had limited minutes because of his lack of offense. It didn't seem like Matisse had as much of an impact on the defensive end as he did in the regular season, or as he's done in years past, or however you want to say that. In these playoffs, he was kind of a non-factor. He made some plays, but I think you kind of notice how bad the offense was for him, and the defense didn't quite make up for it these playoffs, if we can say it that way. So, I'm sure you saw this one. I saw something about Lou Gentz, however you say his name,
Lou Dort
for the Thunder, and the Sixers would give Matisse and a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Dort averaged like 17 points a game this year. Like, I don't see them doing that. Am I wrong for saying that, or is that like a possibility?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just so hard to gauge like what a team is going to accept, in terms of a trade.
Right. Like, the Thunder need more first-round picks.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, you might think that because Sam Presti loves draft picks. I mean, I think they have 4 first-round picks this year. Something like
in the next 3 years. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know. And like, it's just like, that's the thing. It's not totally unrealistic, even though it is a mock trade. It's just kind of like, oh, well, this is interesting to think about because, for X, Y, and Z, for this reason or another reason, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love Matisse, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Like, oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? That's to me why I don't think the Thunder are going to do that, because I would do it quickly, especially with the Danny Green injury and all that fun stuff. Like, Dort is an absolute guy who's not Matisse, where you're like, off the bench starting. Dort would play a role for us big time starting and be able to score a little bit.
That's the kind of player you need, a guy who can shoot, guy who can create a little bit of offense and defend really well.
A hard-nosed guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So that's our take on Matisse Thybulle. Moving on, Glenn Rivers. We touched on this last week. Receiving interest from the Lakers, and that is continuing to persist. Lakers are, there's other guys. Of course, it's the freaking Lakers. They're talked about 365 days a year.
Right.
So there's going to be names associated with them. What are you hearing with Glenn?
Well, apparently the Lakers are I don't even know what wording was used, but are apparently keeping an eye on whether or not he gets, him and the Sixers part ways, as we like to say in the NBA. because I guess they want to sign him for whatever reason that is. I don't know. There's a lot of other candidates out there who would be as good, if not better, than Mr. Glenn Rivers. So I don't know. If they want him, they can have him. It just all comes down to is, Daryl and the team gonna. I just said team. Why did I say team? Daryl and the guys, whatever they're even called, gonna, let him go to the Lakers. Are they gonna release him? Are they gonna, hey Doc, listen, time's up, get out, kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't expect it.
No, I don't either. If it happens, that's fantastic. But
right, but
I'm not thinking it is going to happen.
I don't think so either. We'll see. Let's talk about the big fella.
So
we're moving right along here. First off, I don't know how deep we want to get into this or how deep we want to get into our feelings about this, but Joel Embiid was named second-team All-NBA, and I don't know if you can clear this up for me, but am I wrong when I say that there was something this year that someone said that the voting for first-team All-NBA is not really, Joel and Jokic can be a forward or a center. Was that a thing?
Well, the NBA made Joel Embiid eligible at forward, and I was hearing a ton of reasons why he wasn't actually eligible and all this stuff. But as far as I was concerned, multiple NBA voters who have votes, mind you, who can vote, said that they were going to vote Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic on the All-NBA first team. This was in March.
Right.
So either something changed or they were totally outnumbered.
Well, it honestly, I think I have a problem with Joel and Joel being eligible at forward if the people who are voting aren't going to do it because he's
right. And that's what I was hearing too. They didn't vote for him because he's not a forward. Well,
but if he's eligible at forward, that's not up to you as a voter.
Right.
What's up to you as a voter is to vote for the players, and if he's eligible, he's eligible. That's not your call. You know what I mean?
Right, and the other thing was, there can only be one center on All-NBA first team. Well, here's the thing. Nikola Jokic had the best, he had the best season for a center. Yeah, okay, sure, why not? But here's the thing. Joel Embiid was eligible at forward. They could have easily voted him in as a, pseudo forward, but either way, he was the runner-up in the MVP race.
Right.
I can't really see justification for leaving him off. Aside from whatever, he wasn't actually a forward.
Right.
That kind of thing. Which, it doesn't matter what he actually is, because he was eligible at forward.
Exactly.
And there really was no other reason why the voters couldn't have voted for him as the second forward, aside from the fact that, there's only supposed to be one center.
Right.
And, this is how they always vote. Well, why can't you change that?
Right.
It's like he was the runner-up MVP twice in a row.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Again, if he was not eligible, he was only eligible at the center position, then I would be absolutely okay.
Yeah.
It would suck, but I'd be more okay with it. I just think as a voter, you aren't the one determining who's eligible at what position. You just leave that with however it looks, a document in front of you. If Joel is eligible and you can vote him into that other spot, he's an eligible person. It's not an illegal move for you to do that. Then do it.
There wouldn't be anything wrong with it. You're just letting history prevent you from doing so.
Right.
Because again, like I said, people are so worried and concerned about putting two centers on the first team. Well, guess what? You technically don't have to, because again, Joel Embiid is eligible at forward.
Right.
You could have voted him in on the second forward slot. But no, he's not a forward, so he can't be voted as a forward. It's basically.
So if they're not going to do it for the runner-up at MVP, they might as well get rid of the idea that Joel can be a forward anyway if no one's going to vote for him. So it's you didn't do it anyway, just remove it and say, okay, there can only be one center. Joel's a center. He can't be on that team. Whatever, period. Anyway, so it's crazy. Everybody hates it. Jason Tatum had a good long quote about the voting, and Joel Embiid was runner-up in MVP, and that very well would have been Joel Embiid's spot that Tatum had on the first team. So, and he said
true.
That. So let's think about
true.
that. Joel was also active on Twitter last night during Game 5, Miami-Boston.
Man.
To no one's surprise, I have Joel's post notifications on Twitter because he's just so funny. And I got like 3 straight notifications. Like, what is Joel saying? And one of his tweets, he said, while Miami was getting smacked at home in Game 5, he said, Miami, quote, needs another star. And last I looked a few hours ago, that had 19,000 retweets and, probably some Joel Embiid in a Miami jersey photo edits and
jersey
that kind
swaps,
of thing.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about the big fella last night on Twitter?
Nothing. Just he's just having fun, man. It's the off season. He's 11. He's good. I'd probably be doing the same thing, honestly, just like messing with people. I mean, that's really, if you think about it, that's who he's been since he got drafted here. Like they hate the process, all this stuff. Like that's who he is, and I really would expect nothing less, especially because he's friends with Jimmy Butler. We hear all the time, oh well, maybe Jimmy Butler's going to come back to the Sixers, maybe Joel Embiid's going to go to the Heat. We hear it all the time, so he knows that he reads social media. He goes on Twitter. He's on there all the time, so he knows the stories, the all the jokes and stuff. So he definitely plays into that, and it's funny. Yeah, dude, it's funny until you have people saying, "Oh my gosh, he's gonna leave. He's gonna leave." Like that's when it starts to get it.
Like Bleacher Report or posted it, and it's just funny. He ain't going nowhere, but it is funny. It's what he does.
It is funny.
He tweeted something as well about the Celtics, like they have too many weapons or something like that.
Yeah.
It was funny. He's watching the game. He tweets during soccer games. He tweets during basketball games. He tweets.
He'll just tweet something random, and nobody will know what it means, and they're like, "What does he mean? Yeah. What is he talking about?" But then he tweets like, "Oh, I'm just talking about." I forget what soccer team he roots for, but he'll be like, "Oh, I was rooting for whatever team." I forget what team is it.
I forget.
I don't know. I think it's an MLS, or is it
probably
an MLS team he likes?
No, probably like Man City or something like.
Okay, I think it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not sure. Yeah.
But yep, Joel having fun on Twitter. At least he's got some good spirits.
Yeah.
Tyrese Maxey's been active on the gram too. He's always fun to follow. He's just a fun guy in general.
Yeah.
All right, I've got an idea. So we're wrapping up the season. We are tying a bow on 2022. I'm not going to give
little crooked bow on this one.
A crooked bow on the season that was. I don't know if you remember last year. I did like a 4-minute breakdown of the season, a season recap. It was beautiful. I did not do that much research for this one, so it's not going to be quite as beautiful. But I'm going to run through some things, and then we'll both have a chance. So you can start brainstorming. We'll both have a chance to just give a favorite highlight, a favorite moment, a favorite game, a favorite play, a favorite whatever of the season. Sound good?
All
right. So the Sixers this year, 51-31 regular season, a 3-way tie with the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. 2, 3, 4 seed. Sixers got the 4. We know they played the 1 seed Miami in the second round. The season, obviously, from the second we lost last year to February 10th, there was a lot of talk about Mr. Benjamin Simmons, number 25, as he shall be named. A lot of talk. The Ben Simmons saga, forever. Lasted for a long time. I don't know how many days that is, but from June to February is a long time. February 10th is when the trade went down. Harden debuted 2 weeks later, February 25th. Before James Harden's debut, the Sixers were 35-23, and I think that is why Daryl Morey made the move on deadline day. We talked about it that night. If the Sixers are 500 or sub 500, they're probably just saying, we're going to move on to next season. But Daryl made that move because Joel Embiid had this team at a spot where they were very much contending. And so they made the move. Joel Embiid won the scoring title as a center this year, over 30 points a game. Another notable thing, so the Sixers, I mentioned 35-23 when they acquired James Harden. But when I looked this up, I had a little difficulty remembering this, but they were 16-16 after 32 games. And that was their last point at 500 on the season. 16-16. I mean, they were just trying to stay afloat in the standings, and there were some injuries, some COVID issues even back then, and but that was significant. A couple significant things for me. I think the big win at Milwaukee right before the All-Star break. We just acquired James Harden. He didn't play in that one, but that was a fun game. That was a really fun game. I was like, we got a team here. We can contend. And then, the brutal loss at home against Brooklyn that everyone was fired up about, Ben Simmons' return to Philadelphia, we got absolutely smacked. So that's one that sticks out in
kicked
a
in the
bad
face.
way. But yeah, that's kind of, just a quick recap of the season. Again, 51-31. Beat Toronto in 6 games and then lost to Miami in 6 games in the playoffs. And here we are doing our post-game or, post-season, whatever you want to call, recap episode. So any other things stick out to you as we tie a bow? Players, games, shots, whatever it is.
I actually I have 2 things. One just came to me, the other one I've been thinking about since I read the outline. One, I'd like to give a shout out to George Niang because I think, at least in the regular season, he was a bright spot for the team alongside Tyrese Maxey, obviously Joel Embiid. 2, what was, as Troy said, a wild season, I guess if you want to say. And 1,000 threes off the bench. First, when's the last time that happened? George Niang this season. When's the last time that someone on the Sixers had that kind of season? I don't even know.
How many?
1,000.
1,000?
Yeah. I swear, that's real.
He make 1,000 threes.
Huh?
1,000? You mean 100?
Wait. Are you sure?
I don't think he made 1,000 threes in one season.
You're probably right. Wait, I need to look this up. How do I even look it up?
Because that is not possible.
Okay, maybe it was 100. Maybe it was... How do I even look this up?
I don't know.
George Niang. I don't even know. Whatever. Let's just go with 100.
100.
But sure, everything else I said is true. So, okay.
No doubt.
And my other shout out is to Joel Embiid's 50-point game, tying his career high. I think it encapsulates his season as a whole very well. Another historic year for Joel Embiid ended with, again, as Troy mentioned, the scoring title. First time since Shaq, a center, has won that.
Niang, 156 threes out of 387. 40%.
So it was 150.
Right.
It was 100. Why did I think it was 1,000?
I'm not sure. But that would have been impressive. That would have been a good season.
Yeah. Either way, though, George Niang was also a very big bright spot for this team in the regular season. So, thanks to George Niang for being one of the best bench players the Sixers have had in the last half decade. So, yeah.
No doubt. George Niang, shout out. 40% from 3 in the regular season. If I were to give a shout out to a player, it is easily Tyrese Maxey.
Yes, for sure.
All season long, but I think particularly even when we were 16-16, for example, Tyrese just made games so incredibly fun to watch. Just so incredibly fun to watch. And then Harden came along, and he still made games fun to watch. Particularly the game that he had against Ja and the Grizzlies at home, which was just a really, really fun game. I remember at the very end, Matisse got the steal under the basket, threw it out to Tyrese Maxey. He got the layup that didn't count after the buzzer and just kind of went off into the crowd and was really pumped up. Seth Curry came back and gave him a hug. Shout out to Seth Curry as well. He needs to be a part of the season recap episode. And Andre Drummond.
Yes.
Tyrese was just so much fun to watch all year. He had a big game against Milwaukee at home when we were shorthanded. He just had some monster games. He had monster games in the playoffs. Another memorable moment, definitely Joel Embiid's game winner in Game 3 against Toronto to go up 3-0. That was phenomenal. I was watching that game. I had COVID during that series, and so I was at home, sick as a dog on the couch, and I see Joel make that and just lost it. That was an incredible shot, incredible game. And then a positive from the Miami series was absolutely Game 4. James Harden dropping 31 to tie the series at home. Just really, really won that game for us in the second half, especially the fourth quarter and what he did. And James Harden as a whole, I still find myself saying probably once a week, like, the Sixers have James freaking Harden. Crazy. You and I have said it since 4 months ago or 3 months ago now, and it's still kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, it still kind of is because, one, the Sixers just, like, the Sixers don't get these kinds of players often. Again, the last time they had it was Butler in 2019, 3 years ago. And the last time they had that before Butler was
Allen Iverson.
I mean, maybe there was, like, someone middle tiered kind of guy before that. I don't really recall, but yeah. So it's something to really kind of take hold of, if you will. Yes.
Yep, no doubt. No, I mean, what you said it best. It's been a crazy year. What a wild ride. Yeah. I mean, what a wild ride of drama and speculation, and just it was crazy. And again, it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but there were some bright moments, and there were some fun things, and there's some things to look forward to. So, anything else? Any other moment, player, game stick out, or are we officially wrapping the bow?
No, tying the bow, the crooked bow, tying it up real nice, wrapping it up. One of the craziest seasons in sports history of all time, and of course it happens to the Sixers. One of the most ridiculous things ever in sports, and of course the Sixers have to be involved. Of course, wouldn't want it any other way. Thanks, Ben. Thank you. Actually, not thank you. This is your fault.
Well said. And that's it. That's 2021-2022 Sixers season. Yes. We're moving on, and we're actually going to do some of that in this episode. So, cool. I've noticed some things, Mr. Trust the Love, in some of your posts as of late. We touched on this last episode. You keep emphasizing the Sixers' need for depth off the bench. I think particularly some, like, PJ Tucker type guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Just looking for some guys that make a difference, even beyond the stat sheet, that do things. And I did ask this last week, I believe, but, the balance of another star or more depth, that kind of thing. If you want to hit on that again, and then just kind of tell me where you're at with that, and even give not put you on the spot right now, but, like, even give a glimpse of maybe what an ideal offseason could look like for the Sixers. Yeah. Just kind of tell me how you're feeling.
Well, I'll save a lot of my thoughts for when we actually head into, like, our in-depth offseason stuff. But what I will say now is that I just think it's really important as teams in the NBA get better and better. A lot of the times we see that not only because of star power, but because of how good their depth is, because of how good the guys outside of their stars tend to be. Teams like the Heat, sure, why not? They're in the Eastern Conference Finals right now. A lot of that having to do with the guys they have off their bench. Tyler Hero, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus.
Right.
Like, you want a lot of them kind of came out of nowhere, under the radar. But
8 undrafted guys on that team.
Yeah, it all comes down to the production of these guys. These guys are reliable pieces for the Heat all season long, and now it translates to the postseason well. Depth is one thing that always translates to the postseason, no matter what team you are. Veteran depth, guys who can make plays, guys who can make things happen, and if you're the Heat, guys who can create offense. This is becoming the formula for a successful team. Again, obviously you need star power, but I would say just as valuable, you need depth. You need quality pieces off the bench.
Yeah. And I do not disagree with you. But that makes an interesting discussion because obviously you feel, that the Sixers' depth right now is not good enough. It's not
up to par now.
Okay, so that means people got to go to make room for this, or people got to sit. Yes. So who stays, who goes in your ideal world? Again, we don't have to get too deep, but
yeah. Well, again, I'll save a lot of that discussion for our off-season episodes. But again, what I will say now is that guy we talked about a couple minutes ago. Well, not a couple minutes ago, but in this episode, Matisse Thybulle is someone that we need to keep an eye on. He's going to be someone that, again, is very expendable, is quite valuable in terms of fielding offers from other teams. You know, maybe someone like, depending on the market, Furkan, if he has trade value. I mean, I love Furkan. I literally have his. Well, you can't see it, but I have his. I have a Furkan poster in my room here. You know, a guy like that I think is expendable. Obviously, I'd like to have him back because he's still under contract, but he's expendable at the very least. And you know, it's gonna be interesting this offseason to see what the Sixers do with the very small amount of cap space that they have,
right?
And 2, see what they do in terms of freeing up cap space, because again, kind of maybe the elephant in the room, so to speak, but Tobias Harris's contract. Will they?
Yeah, let's go there. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Will they try to dump the contract more or less? What will they do with Harris? Will they trade him? Will a team be willing to take on the contract for whatever value he has? Which again, he has some value depending on the team, depending on what kind of team
absolutely
he is suited for / what kind of team needs what he brings.
He certainly is one guy that did not hurt his stock this playoffs. Tobias, I have one thing to say about the whole contract thing, and it's probably what you would say, what Sixers fans I hope would say. And it's just, again, especially if we're still in this phase, we've teamed up Joel Embiid and James Harden. We're still in this place of, okay, let's go after a ring. Let's get to the finals. Let's get to the conference finals. Let's make some noise. And so my thought with Tobias Harris is, do not just dump him for the sake of just getting rid of the contract. If you're going to get rid of Tobias Harris, make sure it is someone or pieces coming in that are absolutely going to help. And that's going to be a good player or good players, because Tobias Harris is good and he helped this team again in the playoffs this year. So it's like, don't just dump the contract for the sake of dumping the contract. That's my only wish, I would say, for Daryl and the Sixers. Hmm. Hmm. Are you personally leaning one way or another on Tobias?
No, not really. I think whatever Daryl Morey deems best for the team. Obviously, I love Harris as a player. I don't necessarily see the need to trade him. However, like I said, if Daryl Morey feels like, okay, well, we need cap flexibility because no one else is going anywhere. We're getting Harden back. You know, we need to do something. So if he feels that's what's necessary, then you know, it is what it is. Because again, Sixers don't have a lot of money, cap space, whatever you want to say, and they need that somehow. So if Harden's not going to take less money, which again we can talk about next week as well if you want, then the Sixers, you know, something's got to get done. Something's got to get done.
Right. All right, last thing.
Okay.
One more player I said that we would touch on at the beginning. We touched on him briefly. And I'm curious, you know, there was a lot of mixed emotions, mixed opinions and thoughts regarding Mr. James Harden this season. And so I just want real quickly, I don't remember what your playoff grades were, your regular season grades were, or any of that for James Harden, but your overall opinion, your overall thought on Harden's performance this year in a Sixers uniform.
He could have been better, but I think what we saw from him was still extremely promising and still good, still very impactful. Again, he won the Sixers a lot of games, playoffs included.
I think he was good. I think I think he did well in the role that we asked him to be
Yeah.
in. You know, I wasn't on the camp of James Harden needs to be so much more aggressive than he is, because I think James Harden did a very good job as a game manager at times. And we said it. I said it when the trade went down. James Harden, when we acquired him, he has a game that ages well, and I'm saying that because he's not a guy that has to score 35 a game to have an impact. We've seen that with the Sixers. He can have 14 and 15 assists, and I don't mind that personally. Again, neither of us, I think, with that answer, neither of us expect James Harden to be Houston James Harden, and he doesn't have to have an impact in this league. Patrick Beverley, he said he's not a max player, he's a super max player or whatever. Speaking of Patrick Beverley, maybe we'll see him in Sixers uniform. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. We'll see you next time on episode 54. Look forward to some guests coming on the pod in the future, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we will see you on the next episode of Planet 76. Peace.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Planet 76 Podcast. Please consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot and lets you know that you enjoy what we post. So thank you, and peace out.